The FC Davis's men's and women's teams wrapped up action earlier this month. The men's team, now after a full year of being in the UPSL, after previously being in the NPSL since its founding in 2017, finished their spring season with a record of 4 wins, 2 draws, and 4 losses, good enough for them to sneak into that final spot of the UPSL NorCal North Conference playoffs after a thrilling come-from-behind draw 3-3 against Yuba FC. However, FC Davis ultimately fell in the first round of the UPSL playoffs against FC Folsom 3-1. The FC Davis's women's team wrapped up a very successful campaign after finishing league play in the WPSL PAC North with a record of 6 wins, 3 draws, and 0 losses, which finished them tied for first in the PAC North alongside California Storm. However, the crosstown rivals Storm ultimately got the nod as the official PAC North Conference champions, falling to goal differential. After a successful season for both teams, I had the privilege of sitting down with FC Davis owner Adam Lewin as we recap the season for both sides and what fans should look forward to in 2025. Take a listen. How would you say you would rate or think about the transition from a one league to another? How do you think the players, the coaches were able to get with the change? Because there's going to be a little bit, it's not anything too crazy, but you're going to be playing different teams. This, rosters, the way they're built might be a bit different. So how do you assess that?
Yeah, so anytime you transition leagues, it's always something that it can impact a variety of different fronts. For us and for quite a few of the other teams that were in the MPSL that moved over to the UPSL, there were a lot of positives transitioning leagues. And aside from the players and the coaches who are usually they're totally fine. They just like getting out there and playing in front of the home crowds and competing for titles. I think most of them don't really care what league they play in. They love being out there and they're there for the competition. But I guess from an organizational standpoint, the great thing about switching leagues, and one thing that we definitely wanted was a longer calendar season. So playing in a full year, it has its challenges, but it also has its benefits in terms of keeping a cohesive group together and bringing some younger players on board in the fall, which we use as more of the testing grounds for a lot of players before we enter in the spring, which we treat with a little we just take that season on in a little bit of a more competitive light. So the benefits were great, being able to play in both seasons and moving players around and seeing what works best for us. And then clearly, I think one of the biggest benefits is the localization of the games, like being able to play Dixon. Like that's huge, not only for us but also for them, having those rivalries built in within the league. And we led off with them this year. There's a huge crowd out there. It was a great environment. And if you know anything about our organization, like we like local, everything from our players to our competition. That's what makes the game fun. Is if Dixon has a team, Vacaville has a team. Hopefully one day Woodland has a team. We have a team in Davis. So it helps tremendously just getting people excited. When you're only playing Bay Area teams, it could be, it's fun playing San Francisco and those big market teams, but it's usually more fun to play, the person that, you see at the supermarket every week.
Yeah, that's for sure. So now let's talk a little bit about the women's team, who had a phenomenal season in the WPSL PAC North. As I mentioned earlier in the intro, they went undefeated, 6 wins and 3 draws. How would you, rate, the success of the team and this season?
Yeah, I think every year we kind of take it. You want to try and do well. We try within the organization. Always like our first goal is you go out in the field and you try and win games. That every time you step on the field, that should be what you want to do. The women's season is a little bit different than the men because even though we're working tooth and nail to try and get it done, there's no extended season for women yet. And really in Northern California, SoCal's really caught on and it's starting to get good, but NorCal's definitely a laggard in this area. So the season's really short. It's like 7-8 weeks long, and there's a ton packed into it during that period of time. And at the beginning of the season, just because players graduate or they're leaving their college teams or they're in college and they're coming back at so many different points throughout the season, it becomes really difficult to get like that team chemistry and that bond that really helps teams excel when they're on the field, because you're going to experience some difficult times throughout the course of the season on the pitch. And if you can't look over and really say, hey, I really know this player, I trust them, it can become difficult to really see out games. And so going into this year, I think we were quietly confident because we had a lot of returners or players who had been through it before, like really good players that have played within the team for a couple years, that understood what it took to do well, not only at the level, but also with what the season is, with midweeks and weekend games pretty much every single week. We were lucky enough to have a consistent roster nearly the entire season. And when you combine that with well-placed new additions and players who have been around for a while, you wind up with a team who is, in first place for most of the season.
What should the fans be excited for coming for the 2025 campaign?
Yeah, so for next season, for the men, we touched upon it briefly. Definitely want to, like in the fall, get way more involved in the youth. We're going to start doing more projects with AYSO United, and it's a great, there's just so many kids that play soccer and for AYSO, from the core program, McDavis AYSO, to AYSO United. There's the Alliance program mixed in there. There's an adult program, which is flourishing. And it's really mobilized. You're going to see a big mobilization push this year to really ingrain FC Davis into AYSO. And then in 2025 is when we're going to start rolling out a lot of World Cup planning for the upcoming season. We want to make sure that's really dialed in, not only with our organization AYSO, but also with the business community as well. And then for the women specifically, they need a longer season. They have to push past that, and I know I sound like a broken record, but they have to push past that 8-week summer short burst schedule. There has to be, a longer fall season, spring season. It helps with player pools. It helps keep players involved in the game longer. We've been trying to build it for a couple of years. We've been really close a couple of times, but my fingers are crossed that next year in 2025 is when you'll start to see that roll out. So that's going to completely change the women's landscape in Northern California.
Thanks again to Adam Lewin for taking the time and joining us. This has been a Time Out Media production. We'll see you next time.